I asked her, I'm like, what is this? Like, I think she thought I was a fraud. Like, I think she really thought I was an online fraud like her, and that I was completely bluffing. She had a few, like several positions. I don't remember how many exactly, maybe 3 or 4. But the last one is the person that I spoke to, so I can speak to that. So that person is on record saying that she was fired within 2 weeks of being hired as a teacher for inappropriate behavior with the students.
Up next, we got another one from Ask a Brother podcast. This time, he has on Dr. Taylor Burrows. I did a little bit of digging, a little bit of understanding, and she is a licensed clinical psychologist. I hope I'm saying that correctly. They're discussing Sadia Khan. And if you haven't heard about Sadia Khan, she's just recently been exposed for being a fake doctor and fake guru.
One of the main influences on my decision to leave practice was my frustrations with the profession at that time, and also my frustrations with just how people would be seeking help, because I did general mental health because I was a licensed mental health counselor, and then I did marriage and family work because I was a licensed marriage and family therapist. And in that capacity, it seemed like people just pushed it to the very end, and they would come in as a last resort, like a Hail Mary, and it was very volatile, and they were already out the door. And so finding ways to resolve problems in those types of marriages is almost impossible, right? Like, it doesn't matter how good of a marriage therapist you are. If the couple is just not only incompatible, but they're not willing to do the work, they're already resentful, and they're out the door, then you can't strong arm them, no matter how much talent you have as a therapist. They have to be willing. And I realized that I wanted to work on the prevention side of things. So that's why with my vetting system, I've really created a way to prevent mismatched marriages. So finding the right partner, the right spouse to marry, I think.
Yeah, so she's basically just outlining that she's trying to find it at the space where she can have the most impact, making sure you line up with a person that aligns with you versus it already being done. I say the same thing about the youth in adolescence. It's like when they're young, you have an opportunity to kind of shape their minds. That's when they're the most impressionable. But once they're like 13, 14 years old and they've been, exposed to a certain way of thinking their entire life, they are conditioned to think that way. And so it's going to be less impactful for you to be able to try and change their mind at that age versus being able to change their mind at the age when they're most receptive.
I think is the best intervention point to focus on. And, obviously you can fix some things because a lot of it is a skill issue. Like, relationships are a skill, and a lot of people are not taught that. So if you do find a healthy-ish relationship, like a couple that is willing to learn the skills and apply them in order to resolve the divide that they're experiencing in their relationships, absolutely, you can help those couples save their marriage or save their relationship. But I found that they were so few and far between. And so it was a lot of just very high intense sessions that were disappointing, and then coupled with a lot of the severe mental health that I was treating at the time when I was a therapist, with borderline personality disorders and schizophrenia and trauma victims and perpetrators, and all of it. One of my first topics that I was going to do my dissertation on was on post-traumatic, like secondary post-traumatic symptoms. So the contagion of trauma. And if you do not take care of yourself, you can absolutely absorb all of those symptoms. You can become depressed. You can become, you can have these PTSD symptoms internalized, and it can bring you down. And so there's a lot of burnout. We talked a lot about burnout in the field, but it was more than that. I felt like I was having these like fights with evil sometimes, with people that were just afflicted with evil energy, evil spirits. And it took a lot out of me. And sometimes it made you feel like you were in harm's way. Like I wasn't in a prison. Oh, actually, I did go to prison sometimes, but my job itself was not not me personally, but like as my capacity. In my capacity, I went to the prison to do some inspections and stuff and some consultations. But in my role at the clinic, it wasn't like a high risk population. It was, people who had means that were coming in like voluntarily to therapy, right?
I give them all of the kudos in the world because I find people exhausting. I find, trying to convince them and show them the way, and then even having to be forced into a stringent lane where you can't really deviate from because there's a rubric that you have to follow by law in order to keep your license. It makes it almost impossible to even do good work. So I understand where they're coming from, and it can be frustrating.
So it wasn't necessarily a difficult population that I was working with, but I found that, especially in a small society, you ended up getting everything and anything coming at you through the door, right? And so it's almost like that phenomenon that happens where it's like the hard workers get punished with more work. So like the more good work you do, the more hard work you gets thrown at you, right? So you end up getting all of these very difficult cases. And if you are a perfectionist, like you said, you might be a perfectionist, you don't say no. So you take it on. And you do all this work and it's just, you love it. It's hard to let go. And so it was kind of like a night and day experience when I did let it go and I said no to things and focused on what really mattered to me. But anyway, I digress. But there is definitely a lot of that just negative, pessimistic, nihilistic vibe that I was getting from the experience of therapy. I mean, obviously there's going to be the good experiences too, but I felt like the negative far outweighed the positive because of the system that I was working in, because the mental health fields were, I think they made it really hard for us as practitioners to do good work because there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of guidelines that I feel were politicized and we were not allowed.
Keyword politicized. And what they do, they're very vague about it. So I'm here to tell you what it is that they're trying to say without actually saying it. Everything leans left. That's what they mean. That means that you have to be validating, inclusive, and you can't say things that, you can't say the harsh truth. You have to validate their experience, which how do you validate somebody who's wrong? You know what I mean? And help them. But
to do what I felt was good work because it was not PC. Because they didn't want you to really be objective or really focus or steer people towards what is a healthy or a good decision. They really just wanted you to enable people and encourage their truth and their reality. And I found that very hard to work with coming from someone with my perspective and my values. So I mean, that to me, one of my cliches or one of my sayings, my heuristics that I talked about in my dissertation, which is, it's in my TEDx talk if you ever want to watch it. I talk about the hole in the bucket. And that's how I felt it was functioning. It's like, you can do all this work, but if there's a hole in the bucket, it's never going to get anywhere. Right. You're just going to be scrambling like constantly and just disappointed because the bucket's not going to get full.
Cool. Yeah, sorry about that. So I did hear everything, and I agree. One of the main things that I've been kind of noting, and it was like this thing that you kind of notice on your own at first, and it takes you a while to really realize something's off because we're trained in it, we're immersed in it, we're just used to certain things. And I got to a place where I was starting, similar to you, of questioning like, so we're supposed to validate everything, every belief, every feeling, every emotion, every thought. Like there's not any that we should primarily challenge or even warn and say this may not lead to a positive outcome. It's definitely something I've kind of started to notice, particularly in the mental health and to some degree in the educational fields as well, where it seems like once things are kind of handed down, it's just like a law. It's now a bylaw. It's just the standard. And like any deviation from it can kind of put your license or your ability to work in the field at risk. I'm glad that you were kind of. It's unfortunate that you left the field because it seems like a lot of the people who are realizing what I'm realizing are having a tough time being able to stay within the field just because of all, like you said, all the red tape that kind of prevents a lot of intellectual curiosity, reevaluating certain things. Like this is definitely something that I'm realizing more and more, and I'm trying to, like, how do we walk that fine line? I don't know.
Yeah, I know a few people who are doing it well, and I applaud
Mm,
them because it is a very difficult position to try to work with it while you're in the system.
mhm, mhm,
Uh, I think it takes a, I don't know, maybe it's different in some jurisdictions, in some states, but I found it very difficult in my position.
mhm,
Hopefully you will figure it out if you want to do both. But if you
yeah,
don't want to do both and you do end up transitioning,
mhm,
I can definitely encourage you there because it's scary in a way, right?
mhm,
Because
mhm,
having those rules and boundaries in place, it is a bit of a safeguard, right? And then
mhm, mhm,
knowing you're just doing it on your own, and half of the people that I talk to, or the majority of the people that I talk to who are interested in doing that, they'll like
mhm,
text me after they make the move, and they'll be
mhm.
like, so what do I do with like my paperwork and stuff? I'm like, whatever you want. All you have to do is really, do a good job and tell the truth and present yourself the right way and pay your taxes. Like there's no rules like that for
Mhm.
coaching. It's just a
Yeah.
business.
That's the beauty of America, because it's a capitalistic society. So when it's merit based like this, you have professionals that have worked their ass off. They're experts in the field. And so now they can come and invade the space, take their rightful place in the field when it comes to coaching, and really move out these fake gurus. They're able to call them out for what they are. And I hope they become more aggressive with it, because the more they call out the fake gurus, the ones that are not qualified to be given advice but amass large audiences, the better they're going to do for just American society as a whole.
Yeah. So related to that, one of the things that I'm also noticing is that because the field of life coaching, so to speak, is so wide open and it's a lot more unregulated than it is for somebody to refer to themselves as a
Yeah.
therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist. Um, what are the issues with a field that's that wide open in regards to the element of maybe a over representation of people who could be kind of in it for the wrong reasons, like grifters?
Yeah, I think there's a big
A lot of
problem there. I
grifters.
mean, coming from my experience, I'm over functioning as a coach basically because I have so many high standards and I have so many ethical, just like mandates in my own mind that I
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
things very professionally. And I know that that's not what people do as a general coach. And I've gotten a lot of blowback from people for being too hard on
Hmm.
brand new up and coming coaches that pop up here and there.
Hmm.
But I'm a,
Hmm.
I'm a very sort of direct person.
She's doing God's work.
I will, I have all the skills to be polite and empathic and validating and all that, but I do not, I'm more like my father. I don't suffer fools.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
going to be very straight with you.
Nice
And,
and
if
balanced.
the right people take to it, and then some people just don't like it, and that's fine. I know not everybody has to like me, but
Right.
particularly I remember this one lady who came up on Twitter at the time, and all of a sudden she's like doing this relationship coaching, and I took her aside and I said, I've just, what was your background in? Did you
Hmm.
study relationships or did you take a coaching course? And she's like, no, I was divorced. And my friends talked to me about their problems and I saw that Twitter people were starting businesses. So I thought it'd be really good. It's something I really enjoy doing is talking about relationships and I think I'm good at it. People like to talk.
Hmm.
But then I noticed like her personal life was a mess. Like she was single. She was constantly dating a new guy like every couple of months or whatever. And
Hmm.
her advice was kind of, generic stuff, but she wasn't particularly insightful or, she read some books or whatever. And I just suggested to her, I was like, maybe now's not the right time for you to do coaching. Maybe if you get yourself in a stable position,
Yeah.
and maybe if you did some extra studying or a coaching course, like maybe that would help you
Yeah.
leverage you. And she was into health before. She had like some kind of health certification. And I was like, even if you talked about health as a more of a
Hmm.
focus, you could be a health coach. But the fact that you're specifically talking about relationships, to me, I think you're putting yourself under fire because you don't really have anything to back that up. personally or professionally, right? Like usually you have at least one.
At least one.
Yeah. And so at first she took took a back seat a little bit and was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. And then she listened, and now she's a health coach and she's doing much better.
That's what happens though. You have a lot of unqualified hurt people that are single telling single people how to get in relationships that they don't have for themselves, and they are prominent, and you could just see them all around. I mean, they be cooked, and all of them are giving relationship advice from a perspective of someone who don't have a relationship. And the crazy part about it is that the masses eat that up because it's what they want to hear. They want to hear that they're going to get a relationship. They want to hear that the way that they behave is okay. They want to hear that they don't have to make any adjustments and somebody's out there that's going to accept the bullshit that they have. In reality, that's not happening.
And so sometimes, those kinds of conversations are hard to have, but they're from a good place. Like, I really do think people overshoot and nobody says anything. They're just like, oh yeah, go, make the money. But you have to think about what is right for them. What makes sense, what aligns with their skills and their abilities. And maybe sometimes they're playing out their own stuff, like they kind of want to figure out like how to make a relationship work, but they're not ready to advise other people if you can't even figure it out yourself. I mean, I get it. It's complicated when we talk about our professional life and our personal life, but I do think that someone who has a volatile personal life is not a good advisor.
Yeah. Facts. So I agree. I've definitely had my fair share of relational drama in past relationships and everything. For me, I've learned that I actually don't base nearly as much of my conclusions on who it is I'm willing to listen to on their current dating status, as much as do they have like almost healed and whole perspectives of both sexes. Because, you could be a widow, you could be divorced, and it was very amicable and it made sense for the transition in life. You could be in a marriage and both of you hate each other. So you could have kids and your kids don't think you're a great parent. So I've learned that it's not just as simple as, just to have a ring or not have a ring, or have a man or don't have a woman kind of thing, as much as like your prescriptions and the way in which you're describing a lot of these things. Or people and situations.
I understand why he say that, and that makes a lot of sense, but you can go into the nuance of it like that, because there's always going to be some type of whataboutism. There's always going to be some type of contrarian, outcome that could happen, whether they have a ring or not. But if you think about it as far as a numbers or percentage wise type of thought process, the people who are married or have a ring more than likely will be able to give you better advice than somebody who doesn't, especially if it's somebody who's giving you advice on how to get a ring when they've never had a ring.
I feel like you can almost tell when there is more personal for them than professional, and because they'll start to have like certain patterns when it comes to how they go about which population they're kind of talking to, determines who it is, almost like they're pandering to or who they're punishing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So in the last few weeks, Sadia Khan, a very big influencer who's in the mental health life coaching space, so to speak, has definitely marketed herself and branded herself really, really well throughout the COVID period up until now. But as of the last few weeks, a lot of videos and influencers and content creators have kind of been responding to her kind of more or less being exposed. And I saw your name kind of come up a few times as I was watching a lot of these things and looking and seeing that you had a little bit of a nuanced history with this particular situation. I wanted to kind of prick your brain about, like, how did you come across Sadia Khan? Your history or background with kind of like what you started to notice, and what is it that you tried to do in terms of finding out more information about what she was presenting and what qualifications she had?
Sure. It was 2 years ago, well, 2+ years ago. I think it was summer of 2023. We had our first interaction that kind of started this whole thing. But I saw her stuff on TikTok, on YouTube. I think it was started on TikTok and Instagram, and then she really populated a new YouTube channel. But I thought her stuff was decent, but not as a therapist. I thought her stuff was just decent red pill stuff because that was very popular in my neighborhood online. And she said she was a psychologist, so I assumed she was a psychologist. Good faith, face value. Usually that's how it goes. But you always should have that questioning mind, right? That curious mind. Like if you notice things, then don't take it for granted for too long if you have inconsistencies staring at you. But you like to trust people. And I observed her behavior in the comment section, and that's the notorious tell that everyone is talking about now. That she just goes off. People don't even believe it's her. They're like, oh, it's a bot. Oh, it's someone that works for her or whatever. Come up with some kind of, she was hacked. And this is somebody who's posing as her in her comment section, acting very dysregulated, very, the word that I use is ghetto, ratchet, whatever you want to call it, immature, reactive, like all the derogatory words. Like that's how she behaves in the comments section. And it's
as a psychologist, and her using the term or name or the moniker of a psychologist automatically assumes that she has a level of professionalism. It's the same way that they do. I mean, there's things to be studied here just watching their videos and how they articulate themselves. Because I go back and forth. Sometimes I get mad with Jeff at some of his more diplomatic point of views that kind of stretches it a little bit. To me, it kind of like stretches the truth a little bit, but not really. Not enough for it to be a lie. He's masterful.
The word that I use is ghetto, ratchet, whatever you want to call it, immature, reactive, like all the derogatory words. Like that's how she behaves in the comments section. And it's a stark contrast to how she presents in her videos.
She black, y'all.
Generally, I think now you're seeing the mask.
She look white, but she not white.
More in her videos, but she's much more polished and refined in how she presents herself on her videos, and she's not like that in the comment section. And
she get her shit off.
I just made a comment on one of her age gap videos, and I don't remember exactly how the argument escalated, but I was having my comment started a thread. So there was all these people leaving comments under my comment talking to me, which I don't know if that upset her because I had such an active thread and I had said that I was a retired mental health professional and I had this experience with sexual trauma survivors, and I didn't agree with her assessment that all young women are damaged if they like an older man. And so I was challenging that assumption, and she shut it down. And she's like, I've never seen it. That's not the case. And I just thought this is a very strange way for a therapist to be talking. I mean, I was and am a retired therapist, so I have more leeway in the way that I speak online, but someone who is currently licensed or is a practicing therapist, psychologist, is under different expectations of how they communicate to their potential clients, to the public, and whatever, when they're in a working capacity. And it was just, to me, a big red flag that there was something off here. So I asked her for her credentials, but not in a demanding way. I just said, well, what are your credentials? And she's like, you want me to send them to you? You send me yours, I'll send you mine. And I was like, oh, okay. She got like super volatile and defensive. And so I looked in my email and she shot off like an email saying, I forget what it says. It was a short email. The first one's like, okay, here's my license. Let me see yours. I bet you don't have any. And I'm going to tell everybody that you're a fraud. Da, 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 da. And so I sent her a copy of my PhD, and she came back with, what's that? See, I knew you were a fraud. Like, that's not in marriage and family counseling. You're a doctor of philosophy. So she didn't know what a PhD was. And that made me laugh. But then I was like, okay, wow, something is really up. Like, I don't.
It's the thing that it's the bare bones thing in mental health is that we effectively know, like, for instance, in our field, having your master's is effectively, from the mental health space, the equivalent of like a high school diploma. Everybody's got to have it. That's right. That's the baseline. Right. So just having a master's doesn't make you super great or bad. It just means like that's just the foundational basis for how almost all of us can work in this space as clinicians, right? And then we all know like the step up from that is like your license or going on to get your doctorate. And obviously you get to pick whether it's going to be like clinical psychology, if it's going to be marriage and family, if it's going to be the doctorate in counseling, education. There's just different tracks and options, and you got PsyDs and PhDs. We kind of know that language in that world. So that early on, you're saying that you started to sense that she didn't know any of this.
Exactly. So I was like, does she even have her master's that she claims? And she didn't send it to me. What she sent to me was her teaching certificate, which doesn't qualify her as a psychologist. And it was actually not what she claimed. She said, this is my DHA, which is the Dubai Health Authority psychology license. And what she's sending me is not that. So I asked her, I'm like, what is this? Like, I think she thought I was a fraud. Like, I think she really thought I was an online fraud like her and that I was completely bluffing. And I don't think, or I think she assumed I wouldn't know what she was showing me. Like, I didn't know what to look for. And this is what she does with, allegedly, this is what I think she does with everybody that hires her, is that she just provides these things, claims it's something, and they believe her.
Wow.
Right? But that was the catalyst that made my mommy sleuth. I wasn't a mom then, but like I still have that, investigative mind and my passion for gatekeeping the profession and the public. That I was like, okay, I need to find out more, because I didn't even feel comfortable claiming anything if I couldn't verify it first, right? I didn't want to say you're a fraud with certainty until I did my own research. Right. So I did my own digging and looked at her LinkedIn, and she had 2 different LinkedIn pages back then that say very different things than they do now. And I don't know, I just looked up everything that I could find. I researched her on the internet as deep as I could go without breaking any laws, just in my living room with my computer and no tech. So I just found out that there were a lot of inconsistencies, and she didn't have any licenses. I did contact the DHA. I did contact the British Psychological Society, and nobody had heard of her. And I even tried to track down some of her employers to see if they would say something. And one person actually responded, and they said that she quickly didn't work there anymore, and she was stricken from the website. I was like, oh, well, that doesn't sound good. So it seems like there's a lot of...
Was that place that you were able to make contact with someone, was that a counseling place, or was that something else?
I think it was something else. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I have since, and I am allowed to say this because the person said they would go on record. I have since confirmed with a previous employer of hers in education. So her background is that she graduated with a bachelor's, and then she got her qualified teacher status certificate, and then she started teaching A-levels. A-levels in like American conversion is like high school, like the upper high school, like junior and senior year for us. The reason why I know this is because the Cayman Islands is British, and I had to transfer from the British system to the American system, and it put me back. So when you transfer from the British system to the American system, you fall back. So people like to say, oh, A-levels is college. No. A-levels is not college. A-levels is teenagers. A-levels is high school, like the upper years of high school, because people graduate earlier in the British system. They graduate around 16, not 18, like in the United States. So she taught high school level students according to our US standards, right? Not university, but it's their college, but it's the equivalent to high school for us. So she taught A-levels, and she kept allegedly getting fired. She had a few, like several positions. I don't remember how many exactly, maybe 3 or 4, but the last one is the person that I spoke to, so I can speak to that. So that person is on record saying that she was fired within 2 weeks of being hired as a teacher for inappropriate behavior with the students.
Oh, okay. And this person's going to go on record with this.
They've gone on record with it, but I haven't really emphasized it out there yet. So I have a lot of information that I can still expose her with, but it's, it doesn't look good to be so focused on this. So I try to kind of balance it out, but I'm also giving her time to come forward and to take accountability
expose
and to start telling
her
the truth. But
ass.
she's just doubling down and continuing the facade. And I find that unfortunate because she's forcing the issue to be more contentious, where the authorities are going to have to go get her at some point.
I think that it's a good thing that these professionals are coming to the space, especially the life coaching space, and then shedding light on who's grifting and who's not. And the reason why I say that is because she kept it fair. We live in a capitalistic society. If you're able to make a bag, make your bag. But the one thing you can't do is perpetrate to be something that you're not to make your bag, or try and boost whatever your credentials are and inflate them to be something that they aren't to be able to make the bag. Because one of these days, somebody who has the actual credentials is going to come along and they're going to have something to say about it.
Everybody shut the fuck up. Hey, shut the fuck up. Let me tell you something right now.
If you made it this far, check out the video we just did with AB apparently going broke, telling them to take him to jail because he can't pay his bar tab. It's only like $2,200. Check it out.